No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
We are Venom.
If you're a comic fan and you've been following both DC and Marvel movies and shows, you've sure come across a few actors and actresses who have been in both of these franchises, which made you go... Welcome back everyone to a new video, and this time we're going through my list of 35 actors and actresses who have been in both Marvel and DC universes. This list is not based on preference of these actors and actresses, but just to mention their most noticeable roles we've seen in comic movies and some series. And of course, before we jump into it, and since we're going to talk about some of the stories that those actors have been in and their roles there, I'll have to warn you that there will be some minor spoilers ahead.
And here we go.
Our first on the list is the legendary Willem Dafoe, who starred as Vulko in Zack Snyder's Justice League and in Aquaman as well in the DCEU, where he was persuading, training and preparing Arthur to take up his place as King of Atlantis.
Take up your mother's trident.
On the Marvel side, Willem also gave us the chilling performance as the Green Goblin in 2002 Spider-Man and in the latest Spider-Man No Way Home, being the main villain in both of these movies.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Next up is Russell Crowe, who played Jor-El, Kal-El or Superman's biological father in DC's Man of Steel. Jor-El sent his son away while their planet was on the verge of destruction, giving his son the chance to live and eventually become the strongest hero on Earth. In Marvel lately, we've seen Russell in the trailer of Thor: Love and Thunder, playing Zeus, and we're yet to see his role and performance there, but I think we can all agree that he always puts on a good show in his movies. Then we have Idris Elba, who played Heimdall in Thor movies, briefly appeared in Avengers Age of Ultron and Infinity War in Marvel's universe. Idris also played Rogue in The Losers, which is a DC property, where he was a major part of the CIA Special Force team before he went rogue and turned against them.
Jesus. Something's not right. Oh yeah.
But these weren't his only comic portrayals, as we've also seen him in Ghost Rider: Spirit of Vengeance next to Nicolas Cage, as he was helping him in his quest, and we finally saw him as Bloodsport in the latest R-rated version of the Suicide Squad. When it comes to immersing yourself in character, no one does it better than Christian Bale. We've all seen his transformations and the dedication he puts into the characters he portrays, whether he's playing a comic character or a real-life public figure. We obviously know him from one of the best comic movie adaptations ever, in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy.
What the hell are you? I'm Batman.
And he's also been cast recently as the villain Gore in the upcoming fourth sequel of Thor: Love and Thunder, where he also went through the transformation and preparation to embody the character. Halle Berry has been quite known and seen a lot in the early 2000s comic movies as Storm in the first trilogy of X-Men as well as X-Men Days of Future Past. She also played the main character in the 2004 DC movie Catwoman, which wasn't well received generally and was quickly forgotten. When we talk about great performances, you obviously cannot exclude Hugo Weaving. Every main character, whether hero or villain this actor plays, is always a masterpiece of a performance. Hugo played the Red Skull in Marvel's Captain America: The First Avenger and also played V in V for Vendetta. Both of these movies went to solidify his name as one of the best actors out there.
So let me simply add that it's my very good honor to meet you, and you may call me V.
A good example of an actor who redeemed himself after a bad comic movie would surely be Ben Affleck. He starred in Marvel's 2003 Daredevil, which might have went down as one of the worst comic movies ever, but Ben wasn't necessarily bad in portraying the character, given what he had to work with. He then went on to star as the Caped Crusader himself in Batman v Superman, and I have to say he was the best part of it, especially in the fight scenes. They were the closest to the Arkham Games fights, and by far had the most adrenaline-pumping sequences, and Ben's version was the most brutal out of all the Batmen we've witnessed so far.
Well, here I am.
And he was also in 2017's Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. He was then supposed to write, produce and direct his solo Batman movie after Justice League before all that drama happened with Warner Brothers, which led to him eventually dropping from the project. But I would still love to see his take on the Batman, since Matt Reeves said that he read Affleck's script and described it as a totally valid take on a new Batman movie, and that it was very action driven and very deeply connected to the DCEU, with other major characters from other movies and other comics popping up. Reeves was asked to use Affleck's script, but he passed on from it because he wanted to make a Batman movie in his own way. We can only hope for now that maybe we can at least see Ben Affleck again as the Caped Crusader in the future. Since we mentioned Catwoman earlier, we must also remember the original Catwoman, who was portrayed best by Michelle Pfeiffer in Tim Burton's Batman Returns in the world of DC. Her version really carried the movie there, but that obviously wasn't her only comic character portrayal, as she also starred in Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp, playing Hank Pym's wife and Hope's mother, Janet Van Dyne.
Meow.
I think we can all agree that one of our favorite characters in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was J. Jonah Jameson.
You serious?
Played by J.K. Simmons, his impulsive attitude and hilarious sense of humor made him a significant part of Spider-Man's stories.
Mr. Jameson, please, isn't there any of these shots you can use? I really need the money.
Miss Brandt?
Yes.
Get me a violin.
J.K. Simmons also played Commissioner Gordon in 2017's Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. And he's another actor that I'm really upset we didn't get to see more of in the DCEU. But hopefully that will change soon enough.
How many of you are there? Not enough.
Chris Evans is also a very familiar face in comic movies, and he starred in a few of them, playing a funny, full-of-himself Joker personality, such as his character of the Human Torch in both parts of Marvel's earlier Fantastic Four movies, as well as playing Jake Jensen in The Losers on the DC side. But then he went back to Marvel to eventually be popularly known as the leader of the Avengers, Steve Rogers' Captain America, and starred in the Characters trilogy movies along with being in all of the Avengers films too.
Avengers! Assemble.
To many of us, Michael Keaton is still the best Batman to date, and we still refer back to his version in Tim Burton's first two parts. His performance will always be one of the most memorable, and he likes to remind us of that too.
I'm Batman.
Michael also starred in Marvel as the villain, playing Adrian Toomes' Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming, and I'm sure that made a lot of us remember the famous Harvey Dent quote.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Tommy Lee Jones was also in DC as the villain opposite to Val Kilmer's version of the Caped Crusader in Batman Forever, where he played the campy version of Harvey Dent's Two-Face next to Jim Carrey's The Riddler. His latest Marvel character was Colonel Chester Phillips in Captain America: The First Avenger.
Go get him.
I'm not kissing you.
Zoe Saldana is also an actress with strong performances in all of her movies, and she played Gamora in both parts of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy as well as in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. In DC, she played Aisha in The Losers as a member of the CIA Special Force team alongside Idris Elba and Chris Evans. Tom Hardy, a favorite actor to many of us, was also in some great comic movies before, as he first played Bane in Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises, which is my favorite movie in that trilogy, and Bane is my favorite villain of all time because of Tom's portrayal of him. Then he went on to play Eddie Brock, who gets his life invaded by the symbiote to eventually identify himself as...
We are Venom.
And he starred in the two-parts film of the character of Venom. Laurence Fishburne, one of the most respectable actors, also graced the screens with his portrayal in DC's Man of Steel and Batman v Superman as the head of the Daily Planet, Perry White.
Nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman.
And then in Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp, where he was Dr. Bill Foster, the scientist helping the villain, Ava, at the time, who was played by Hannah Joan Kamen to cure her from her condition. But before all of that, Laurence was also the voice of the Silver Surfer in the second part of the Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer.
I am not the Destroyer.
The charismatic Ryan Reynolds always gives us great joy on the screen, and he's also one of the actors we've seen in quite a few comic movies. He played Hannibal King alongside Wesley Snipes and Jessica Biel in the third installment of Marvel's Blade Trinity, then played the worst portrayal of Deadpool in X-Men Origins Wolverine, and Ryan didn't even like how that character was handled there. Then he went on to become Hal Jordan in DC's Green Lantern, until he eventually got what he was working for a long time, to give us two of the best comic movies to date, Deadpool 1 and 2. And Reynolds expressed clearly in the second Deadpool part how he really felt about his previous portrayals.
God damn, that's beautiful. You're welcome, Canada.
A lot of people might have not noticed, but Zachary Levi was in Marvel before he got his role in DC as Shazam. He played Fandral in Thor The Dark World and Thor Ragnarok. And in an interview, Zachary talked about how it was a good thing that his Fandral character was killed off, which paved the way for him to play Shazam. He strongly wanted to star in a comic superhero film for a while, and he even sought an audition to play Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy when Chris Pratt passed on that role in the beginning. But obviously Chris took on the part in the end, and Zachary became DC's Shazam!
Your phone's charged. Your phone's charged. And your phone's charged. Well, you think you can do better? What the hell?
As the metal-controlling anarchist Magneto, Michael Fassbender made quite an impression with his portrayal of the villain in Marvel's X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix. But he was also an antagonist in DC before that, as he played Burke in the 2010 movie Jonah Hex alongside Josh Brolin and Megan Fox. Callan Mulvey is always a good choice for a villain, and we've seen him playing Jack Rollins, one of Hydra's secret members hiding within S.H.I.E.L.D. in Marvel's Captain America The Winter Soldier. And in DC's Batman v Superman, he was Anatoly Knyzev, the leader of Lex Luthor's mercenaries.
Drop it. I said drop it! I'll kill her! Believe me, I'll do it! I believe you.
Djimon Hounsou is also one actor that I hugely admire and always enjoy his presence whenever he's on screen. In Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, he played Korath, who was fighting Star-Lord in the beginning of the movie to get the Power Stone. And in DC, he was the wizard who was looking for a successor to take up the power of Shazam.
Speak my name!
I don't know your name, sir.
My name is Shazam.
And he also voiced King Rico in Aquaman. But before all of that, he played Papa Midnight beside Keanu Reeves in Constantine. Josh Brolin is mostly known as one of our favorite Marvel villains, Thanos, whom the Avengers movies have been building up their heroes to face off eventually. And he also played the villain Cable in Deadpool 2, who turns around in the end and becomes one of the good guys. But before his villainous demeanors, Josh was the protagonist in DC's Jonah Hex, where he faced off against Michael Fassbender's Burke. Natalie Portman, recently known as female Thor, who is supposed to take up the mantle after Chris Hemsworth, played Jane Foster in the first two parts of Thor and appeared briefly in the first Avengers movie in Marvel. On the other side, she played Evie Hammond in V for Vendetta with Hugo Weaving. James Marsden is also known for a few comic movies, and he is popularly known as Cyclops in Marvel's first X-Men trilogy. On DC's side, he played Richard White, Lois Lane's husband in Superman Returns. Before we got the magnificent version of John Bernthal's The Punisher in Netflix, and before the awesome portrayals of Frank Castle by both Ray Stevenson and Thomas Jane, it was Dolph Lundgren who first played the Marvel character back in 1989. Then he recently went on to play King Nereus in DC's Aquaman, and we should expect to see him reprise his role again in the upcoming sequel, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Ayelet Zurer first appeared in DC as the mother of Kal-El, Lara Lor-Van in Man of Steel, before she went to Marvel to play Vanessa Mariana, the Kingpin Wilson Fisk's wife, in Netflix's Daredevil. Chris Pine was the voice of Peter Parker in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on the Marvel side.
My name is Peter Parker. I was bitten by a radioactive spider, and for 10 years, I've been the one and only Spider-Man.
And he also played Diana Prince's love interest Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984. Sylvester Stallone is no stranger to comic movies as well, and we have seen him in Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in a small role as the Ravager Captain Stakar Ogord. In DC, he was recently the voice of King Shark in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad.
And I carry a friend. I wear disguise.
You still look exactly like yourself.
And what kind of disguise?
Fake mustache.
Randall Park played Jimmy Woo in Marvel's Ant-Man and the Wasp, who was assigned as Scott Lang's parole officer, making sure he stayed under house arrest. And on the DC side, Randall appeared as Dr. Stephen Shin in Aquaman, where he was trying to convince the public of the existence of Atlantis. David Dastmalchian appeared in 3 comic movies so far. First in The Dark Knight as Schiff Thomas, who was a mental patient recruited by the Joker to give the hint to Harvey Dent about his next victim, who was Rachel Dawes. He then went on to star as Kurt in Marvel's Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, and finally went back to DC to become Polka Dot Man in 2021's The Suicide Squad.
Baba Yaga, the witch. They tell stories to children to frighten them.
Jeffrey Wright has recently been introduced to the comic world as the Watcher in Marvel's animation series What If.
I am the Watcher. I am your guide through these vast new realities.
And in DC, he appeared next to Robert Pattinson as Lieutenant James Gordon in The Batman. Tilda Swinton is also a familiar face in comic movies. She was known as the Ancient One in Marvel's Doctor Strange and in Avengers Endgame 2, but before that she played Gabriel in Constantine. Taika Waititi has become more indulged in the world of Marvel lately, from acting in to directing some comic movies. He first starred as Hal Jordan's friend Tom Kalmaku in DC's Green Lantern. Then he went on to voice Korg in Marvel's Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Endgame.
Piss off, Ghost!
We also have Tao Okamoto, who played Mariko in Marvel's The Wolverine, and in DC she was Lex Luthor's assistant, Mercy Graves in Batman v Superman. Dominic Purcell first appeared in Marvel's Blade Trinity as Dracula or Drake, opposite to Wesley Snipes.
Blade. Ready to die.
I was born ready, motherfucker.
Then he appeared in a few CW shows until he had a continuous role as Mick Rory or Heatwave in Legends of Tomorrow on the DC side. Finally, we have Angela Bassett, known mostly as T'Challa's mother, Queen Ramonda, and she also appeared in DC's Green Lantern as Dr. Waller.
How are you feeling today, Mama? Proud. Your father and I would talk about this day all the time. An alien life form, Doctor. The first that mankind has ever encountered, despite what the conspiracy theorists would have you believe.
And so this was my list for top actors who have been in both of our favorite universes. I hope you've all enjoyed this list, and let me know if there are any more names you'd like to add or more information about any of the actors, movies or shows that I mentioned in this video. Post your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and I would very much love to read what you have to share. And until I see you all in the next video, thank you very much for watching, have a splendid day, and peace out.